Cut my hair. All right, I think we're live. Still don't see the live button, but that's all.
How often do you trim your hair?
I try to do it weekly,
Hmm.
but that doesn't happen.
I'm every 2 weeks, but it's growing faster in the sun now, so
Yeah.
may have to go soon.
All right, we're alive.
There you go.
Um,
It's great.
all right, we're live on actually not on YouTube, but we're live on me and Ron's LinkedIn, on Facebook, on other places. So thanks for joining. We've got some fun stuff to talk about today. I'm going to cover Superman. uh, let's see what angle I take with that. I'm also going to talk about being an imposter. And Ron, what are you talking about today?
I'm talking about Wells Fargo. Welcome back, and 6 inches. And we'll let you guess which 6 inches I'm going to talk about.
Ron, you gave me about 4 or 5 different topics, and
Yep.
I said that 6 inches is the one we're gonna focus on because hopefully that'll get. But
I'm gonna lob over those other six. Don't worry.
what's that?
I said I'm still gonna lob over those other six. We'll just go fast.
There we go. Well, thanks for joining. Doesn't matter where you're watching from, if you're watching live or watching later, but I'm Dave. This is Ron. We are partners at Little Nessie Media, and we how many years collectively do we have in the mortgage industry, Ron? You're
That
30 or so?
I was 99, so I'm 26 years in.
Okay. So we've got about roughly 40 years collectively in the mortgage industry. So thanks for joining. Little Nessie, we are a media company in real estate, in housing, and Ron and I are going to go live every week, and we're just going to pick some topics that we think are fun, and we hope you get something out of it. We're primarily designed to help loan officers brand themselves, market themselves. Ron and I have been talking for about 6 months, and we've got a new AI product that we're going to be launching sometime in the near future. We don't have a solid date, but we are super excited about it. I think it's going to change the game from a marketing and branding perspective, not only for loan officers, but many different industries. But my first topic, Superman.
Hey,
I'd
Dave,
love to.
can I interrupt you?
Yes.
Just one quick thing. So this is our third podcast in this format, and so if you guys are watching, thank you. Give us feedback because our intention is to keep getting better. So you're really just in a practice session where you get to hang out with Dave and I. And the other thing is, when we originally envisioned this podcast, we called it Happy Hour with Ron and Dave. So you'll see both Dave and I occasionally grab our cup, and it's because it's happy hour. And Dave, what are you drinking in your cup?
I'm drinking. So I've been off beer for a year and a half, and I was a heavy beer drinker, not alcoholic stage, but so I cut out beer altogether and just straight hard liquor. And it's been a year and a half, and I've seen my health turn around quite a bit. So all that to say, I'm drinking a midday mimosa here.
Wow, good for you.
Yeah.
Dave, I tried to run that past my wife one time. I'm like, sweetie, I think I'm drinking too many beers. I got to switch to hard alcohol. And I just have to tell you, for me, it went all downhill. Like things didn't improve from there. So she's like, maybe you should just get back to drinking beer. I'm like, see, it's like Trump with the tariffs. I'm gonna tariff everybody 50%, and then they end up being 10%. Everybody's thankful. And so that was my beer strategy well before Trump was in office.
Well, beer was my weakness. I found that I could not only drink one, so I just kind of gave that up. And I went on a kick where I was drinking alcohol-free beer, and I was actually surprised at how decent it was. But there you go.
I can tell because I still have some of those in my refrigerator. They're so good.
And some
Uh,
alcohol or alcohol-free prosecco as well, which is not
that's
quite as
right.
good.
But I'd like to think beer is my superpower.
There you go. I think you've
Oh,
got
there you
other
go. But now,
superpowers.
speaking of superpower, what do you got going on with Superman?
Okay, Superman. But before that, we are in for 1 week. We are running a special on the Little Nessie store, littlenessie.com/store. 15% off all our merchandise. We've got about a dozen t-shirts. You see 4 here, but we've got about a dozen t-shirts, and they're all designed for loan officers, and they're kind of designed intentionally to be conversation starters. So where I'm out in the wild, I've got some spoofs here from National Geographic, of course, and the parental advisory lyrics little symbol that we used to see. I think that popped up quite a lot in the 90s or so. So we've got some fun, cool T-shirts on our swag store, littlenessy.com. So that special will be there for a week. But Superman, you ready, Ron?
No, I'm not, because I want to talk about t-shirts now that you slipped that in there. Then we'll go to Superman, even though I gave you a perfect segue, like I
You
was a
did.
professional.
You did.
These t-shirts are pretty fun. They're unbranded, just industry specific. They're fashionable. They're nice t-shirts. They're super good. We're going to support a store where we have mortgage industry specific merchandise that's just fun to wear. And if you don't want to have to wear your company's jersey, especially like pretend you're going out to a recruiting meeting in public and you don't want to be noticed being from a certain company, wear non-branded stuff, but it's pretty good stuff. Now, Dave, I only have one question. When you brought this whole sale up earlier today, does that sale apply to you and me?
The
Because I
sale?
know you have me buy stuff at full price, friend. Well,
Yes.
can I do I get the discount?
It's actually a 15% increase for you, Ron. Sorry.
I gotta capture that code word so I can save money myself.
All right. Well, one more time. Yes. Use code word Nessie. You'll get
Yeah.
15% off all the gear that we have on our littlenessy.com/store. We've got some Little
Can I get
Nessie
the
branded.
15% off on prior purchases?
No, sir.
Oh, dang it. Okay, let's get to Superman.
Superman. I'd love to hear in the comments if anyone's watching us live. We've got some people across all the channels, but I am so excited for the movie Superman. If you've been paying attention, there is a business tie-in here, by the way. If you've been watching, uh, if you've been online for the last 6 months, Superman, a new version of it is coming out. I think it came out probably at midnight last night. But I've got my tickets to go see it on Saturday mid-afternoon or so. But it's been interesting to watch all of the trolls and hate that Superman has been getting, this new movie directed by James Gunn. The one prior to that, I forget what year it was released, but Henry Cavill, the actor who played Superman in that movie, directed by Zack Snyder, there was a lot of love. That was my favorite Superman version since Christopher Reeves. This is the bad thing about drinking prosecco, Ron. Gonna have to pull the mic away for some belches. But
I thought you wanted the margarita. What happened
I
there?
was I switched to mimosa. So anyway, so Zack Snyder he kind of brought this whole gritty, dark version of Superman, and it carried its way through a lot of the other DC movies that started to come out. Batman, Wonder Woman, all the others, and there was a massive following, a lot of love for Zack Snyder. I was one of them. Well, I was one of them for Superman. The other all the other ones I kind of hated, did not like, especially my least favorite, the Wonder Woman 2, WW84 or something like that. But I've been watching in the last 6 months or so. It was early on this year when the first trailers released. Even before that, when Superman's suit was shown and it was a different kind of suit, it just started getting a lot of hate. James Gunn is directing this movie and making this movie based off one of the comics or several of the comics, and it has a lighter tone, lighter colors, complete opposite of Zack Snyder's dark and gritty tone, and because of that has gotten a lot of hate before the movie has even released. Like I said, I think probably the first showing nationwide was last night, probably going into midnight or whatever. But before anyone's ever seen the movie, just hate on the costumes, hate on the fact that Henry Cavill is not Superman anymore, hate on you name it, hate on the CGI, and all kinds. And I've had fun watching it. And I got to be honest, I think this is going to be possibly the most successful movie of the year. But it really struck me when I started thinking about it, where we are in business from an AI perspective, and not just AI, but a lot of others. When any kind of change happens in our industry and in any other industry, that there are will always be haters. There are always going to be people that are reluctant to move forward, to go with the flow, to implement those changes that are necessary for our business to move forward. Just like we've seen these haters, these trolls, hating on the Superman, on the new Superman movie without even seeing it. Uh, and that's not to say that, hey, everyone's going to fall in love with the new movie, and this is less about Superman and more about just kind of moving forward and adapting to change. So I am super excited, and resistance to really resistance to any kind of, whether it be AI, whether it be Dodd Frank, whether it be whatever it is, that these big changes that happened in our industry. And I am guilty of it too, to some extent. I remember when Reels came about back in the early, even before TikTok, but when Reels and Shorts started to become way more relevant and way more engaging, and how to go viral when you do these stupid dances. I was super hesitant and really thought these viral trends were very cringe. Still do, to be honest. But I my evolution or my entry into the creative world was through video, and kind of made a name for myself with video. But it was these videos that I would produce that had heart, soul, and most of them were 3, 4, 5 minutes, and that was my bread and butter. And when this new 30 second, 60 second TikTok dances came about, I was so hesitant and pushed against that. And now that's really, I will never watch a video online if it's more than 60 seconds, or if I'm just scrolling, if I'm just looking to be entertained quickly. And so it's that's just one of my thoughts in there. Ron, what do you have to add on that?
Well, who's your favorite Superman actor?
That's a tough one.
This is gonna
I
be
would say
this
it
is
was probably
public.
Henry. I would say it was probably the previous one, Henry Cavill, but that might be. I don't know. I don't know. Christopher Reeves, the original.
Well, the original is George Reeves.
Yeah. Okay. I knew there was one before Christopher Reeves, but I couldn't name him. But
Well,
the one that I've enjoyed the most was probably, I don't know. It's a toss up between Christopher Reeves and Henry Cavill.
so George Reeves is actually the one that played him in the TV show that I watched when I was a kid, which you
Okay.
probably didn't watch. You probably,
Nope.
you know, date. And then Christopher Reeve was great. So there you go.
Yeah.
There you
Any thoughts on that? Where Ron? Where have you found?
go.
Where have you found hesitancy to move forward when change happens?
Yeah, Dave, you're so right on this in that it's amazing how often we roll out technology or new technology, and whether you're a loan officer or you're a leader or even C-suite, it's amazing how often we get resistance from people that have never touched it. I remember we rolled out a really large scale new underwriting technology, and man, the company I was at, and the underwriters just screamed bloody murder. I hate this. I can't. We're not going to use this. This thing is horrible. And they gave all this resistance and objections, and we're in this very contentious meeting. And when the person I was speaking out the most, I'm like, okay, well, did you experience this last time you used it? Like, what happened? And she's like, no, I've never used it. I'm like, well, what is all this resistance? And that's a lot of times it happens with all of us. We're like, I can't take one more new thing. What I have isn't good, but at least I understand it. And by the way, I'm probably the poster child of this. What I have is fine. I can understand it. Don't complicate my life. Don't jeopardize my customers. Don't jeopardize my productivity. But in today's world, with things moving so fast, if you don't learn how to adapt and to adopt, you will be left behind so quickly. And so that's something that we really have to change. And it's true with our movie taste. It's because, Dave, we get, I forget what the number was, 80 million images a day. We have to make choices really fast. And so we make judgments that aren't true. But it's time saving. It's like preservation. But we have to be careful on what we're making those choices on. Now, whether you make that about whether you're seeing a movie or not a big deal. If you make that about a key tool that can help you propel your business, that's a big deal. Right. So I completely agree with you.
Yeah. All right. Why don't you switch to one of your topics? Pick one. I think we talked about me doing my two, then you do your two, but why don't we flip flop?
Someone argue about the greatest, Superman, and I would have to say George Reeves.
Really?
uh, well, because he had to do without any special effects. He just got in that goofy outfit, and I don't know if they flew him around on a string or what happened, but
I have a tough time watching movies before 1980, but I was born in 78. But I just
it was a TV show, by the way,
oh,
in the '60s.
sure. So TV show or movies, I've got a tough time watching older stuff, but maybe that's just because of my age.
So I wanted to bring up Wells Fargo, and I wanted to bring up the topic because they've recently got out of jail. They were in jail for the last 7 years. The Fed had them on restriction. They had maximized their maximum asset limit, which for a bank, assets are their lifeblood, and so they limited it. In fact, Wells Fargo had to liquidate assets to get down to the cap, and they've been at that cap for 8 years. And with the new administration and a new, mindset, they've been set free, which I think is great. And I'll say from the onset that Wells Fargo is over their lifespan has been a phenomenal company. It is a great company. And it's my opinion that Wells Fargo almost single handedly saved the mortgage industry during our dire time of need during the great financial crisis. Now, the government came to assistance too, but if you were around in 2007, 2008, the only lender really doing jumbo loans at scale was Wells Fargo. Every other player got out of the market, every player. And all you could do is GSE, and you could do Govy. That's all because the Govy came to our assistance, but every other player got out of out of the fuzzy space. They got out of correspondent lending. They got out of jumbo. But you know what? Wells Fargo stood the line. I think they did that for a very civic reason, and that we should be very thankful for them. And they were a lot of times the only lender offering warehouse facilities. I mean, you see the implode meter. It would have been 5x if there wasn't somebody like Wells Fargo providing liquidity. So I'm a huge fan of Wells Fargo. That being said, even great companies can tumble, and Wells Fargo went through this decade of somehow they took on their evil ultra ego, and they did a whole bunch of bad things which got them into trouble. And Dave, you and I were talking about this, and we don't have a way to show this, but if you look at the litany of things that Wells Fargo admitted to or were sanctioned for, and I'm going to read just some of these just to remind you. This when I read these, I want to refresh your memory that they did about a dozen bad things that led to almost $10 billion of fines and also put them in jail, in the proverbial asset jail, whether it was creating 1.5 million fake accounts or 750,000 fake credit card accounts. But it's more than that. They paid almost $4 billion in penalties and reimbursements to consumers for illegal fees and interest rate charges. One of the things is they in their systems weren't working great, and so they were mischarging people on mortgages, which led to foreclosures when it wasn't the mortgagee's fault. It was the bank system screwing them up. They did the same thing with something like almost 1 million car loans. And so you just look at, there's like a dozen really, oh my gosh, these are bad. And I will tell you that recently, I don't remember who this article was in, but there was a great article called "Welcome Back, Wells Fargo" by Eric Salzman wrote it. I forget who who actually published it, but you can get it on my LinkedIn if you want to see it. But here's the thing: the reason why we're talking about today is not to compliment or criticize Wells Fargo. Is that, and by the way, Dave, before I go on, do you remember any of those Fed actions? Do you have a recollection? Because it's been so long now, I think most people have forgotten that whole turmoil.
What was the year the first one was?
The first one came in 2018.
18?
2016, September
16, yeah.
2016.
Yeah, I
That
do.
was yeah, that's when they were actually acknowledged that they created a 1.5 million deposit accounts and 565,000 credit card accounts between 2006 and 2016 that may not have been authorized by consumers.
Yes, that's about I've seen them come up in the news a bunch, but that was the main one that I remember. It just seemed to, I think after the second or third one hit, I just stopped paying attention because I was like, how is this company still in business? But could Wells Fargo even go out of business?
Yeah, well, it's too big to fail
Too
because if
big
it
to
was not
fail.
too big to fail, they would have driven it out of business. Yeah, 570,000 customers were wrongly charged for auto insurance, forced place auto insurance on cars,
Right.
which led to 20,000 repossessions, holy smokes, right? and just with reckless abandon. This is a really fascinating article. But here's the thing: this is why it's relevant today. And this isn't a rant; it's actually encouragement. Today, we now face a very lax administration and a gutted out CFPB. And so, some people in the mortgage industry think it's wild, wild west. We can do anything. Like we can do anything now, right? We don't care about comp. We don't care about RESPA. We don't care. Like it's all good. But here's what I'm going to tell you. There's going to be a new sheriff in town sometime. Maybe the sheriff today doesn't care, but the sheriff tomorrow will care. The Chopras of tomorrow will care, and they'll be retroactive in their enforcements. And you don't have to defend making dumb decisions today, things that wouldn't look good in the light of day. You got to do the right thing. You got to act like the strictest sheriff is still in town. Protect your brand, protect your reputation, protect your company. Don't let what happened to Wells Fargo, where you lose your way and all of a sudden, man, you are just disgraced and it takes decades to climb back out. Instead, always do the right thing. Always protect the brand. Always protect your reputation, and don't take shortcuts. And it's not sufficient to go, hey, they're doing it, so we should do it too. Nope. Nope, I don't think so. So just be cautious. Dave, any thoughts on that?
Who are you talking to primarily there?
Who am I directing that to?
Everyone, or more specifically, people in senior leadership, executive leadership, or I think the message is true for anyone, right?
Well, I think it's both in C-suite. I think that we get, we forget that there'll be a different day coming, and so we see our competitors do something that puts us at a huge disadvantage, and we think that our existence, is going to rely on us following path, right? And look the way LO comp is today. How many lenders have some sort of bucketed LO comp, which by black letter law is illegal, and under a different administration will be found illegal? Now, I hope the comp rules get rewritten. I think they're dumb as can be, so don't misunderstand my sentiment. But we've become really lax on that because we don't think anybody's paying attention. Somebody's going to come back and pay attention. Now, like I said, I hope this Congress changes the LO comp rule sincerely. But Dave, loan officers do the same thing. Loan officers will sometimes get dirty because they think nobody's minding the store, and that's a giant problem. It's a huge problem, and we've had more problems with loan officers that have committed fraud or have done illegal RESPA stuff in the last couple of years. We haven't had any time because they don't think anybody's watching. But one thing I'll tell you about this: if you're a loan officer and you think about fraud, and lenders have this problem too, the same AI tools that lenders are using to manufacture a loan, well, the GSEs and investors are using to audit loans. And so they have very, very sophisticated technology today to audit loans. And they're finding things that we couldn't possibly underwrite. Like they have access to this data that we would never see. And then we get an unsellable loan for something we never could have known about, but that they have this really, like kick-ass technology that can shove that loan back down our throats. And so it's very hard to get away with stuff. It's very hard, especially if you're selling it to an investor. Now, in the GSEs, you can throw it into a pool and it can get kind of lost sometimes. But even that's a bad strategy because when shit hits the fan, that stuff's coming right back at you.
I don't remember. Did anyone go to jail from all of
From
these actions from Wells?
No, nobody went to jail, but the CEO and the head of lending were both fired, and they both got hung with a $17 million personal fine, and they were banned from being in the finance industry for life.
What are they doing today? Any idea?
Well, they made hundreds of millions of dollars. I'm sure they're out on a boat,
On their yacht.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
And I mean, they were scapegoats, honestly. Like Joe Stump, or I think it was Stump is the guy's name. He was a good CEO. I just think they became so big they didn't have controls. Now, Dave, you and I have friends that were in the middle of that storm who we won't mention, and they're good people that maybe just, they're under the pressure to deliver. And, that's what happened.
Yeah. Now, I don't know anyone personally at Wells, but I do know people personally at other companies that
I'll remind you, we both have a good colleague that was at the center of that at Wells Fargo. I'll remind you later.
I didn't
call
know
him
that.
out.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Maybe I'll text.
Won't forget about that.
Okay, what do you got here? You got what's up next?
Imposters. So Ron, your topics are going to be, this is what I like about it. Your topics are going to be so different than mine. Mine are more, what's that?
You got fun stuff.
Well, I didn't say fun versus not fun. Yours are data driven. Yours are whatever. I'm talking about Superman and imposters. No, but imposters. Uh, Here's one thing that struck me, and Ron's going to disagree with me because we already touched on this a little bit. But the more I use AI and start paying attention to it, again, Ron and I are working on a new marketing branding product that is AI driven, but well, I won't say too much because we've got some NDAs out there and all kinds of stuff. But we're work. The more I use AI, the more I'm paying attention to what's going on with it. But one of the things that I'm cautious of is not using AI to get me in a headspace to where I think that I'm the professional at it. So I can use AI, ChatGPT, whoever, whichever, to help me diagnose a health issue. Um, I can have a voice chat or start typing on my keyboard, start telling AI what my symptoms are. Right, I might have some pain in my gut, or I might have a blemish on my ear, or something like that, or something more serious. And this is something I've done with AI. Actually, I had to have a spot removed from my ear, and I was uploaded a photo and ended up being mild cancer. Had it removed, no problem. But the more I started to think about it, the more I realized that if we're not careful, that we can start elevating ourselves to a position to where we think we are the professionals. So just because that I can input, and Ron's going to disagree with me. I can already sense it coming. Ron, he's going to push back, and you're 100% valid of where you're going to go. But my point is, just because we can have AI tell us something, do something for us, does not mean that we are that person. It doesn't mean that because it told me that this spot on my ear was possibly cancerous, that I'm all of a sudden a doctor. Just because I can have AI give me a recipe and cook one great meal one night does not make me a culinary chef, and so on. I think you get my point. And it stands out to me because marketing, branding, storytelling is my world. It sticks out to me where it's so much easier to use AI and have it create landing pages, websites, logos, videos, AI generated videos. And almost anyone, if you know slightly your way around AI, you can have it do it for you. But my kind of fear, or my kind of where it turns my stomach, is where I see people just spewing out content for the purpose of quantity, and completely forgetting about quantity. And this is true for any whatever role you find yourself in, whether it be a loan officer. If I could probably train AI to help me on how to submit paperwork for a loan. I could probably have it train me on how to give some good advice to a consumer looking to buy a home. It doesn't necessarily make me a licensed loan officer. However, if I spend that much time with ChatGPT or any AI platform, the amount of time that it would take for me to become as good as an average loan officer, it would probably take just as much time for me to go through the actual process to become a loan officer. And for me, when I see the marketing content, branding content, videos, and so on, that's become just kind of one click and spew it out, kind of makes my stomach turn a little bit when I see the quantity has become prioritized over quality. That I think partnering with the right person that uses AI to help them improve what their skill set is at the forefront is the perfect combination. Ron, argue with me.
I'm going to argue with you. First, I have to say, Belinda, my wife, has been texting me to coach me to pay attention to you more when you're talking. And so, Belinda, I'm just letting you know when he's speaking, I'm actually pouring another beer, and so that's my distraction. but but thank you for the coaching. Dave, I agree and I disagree. That's all I can say. In one ways I disagree. Like I have wonderful doctors. I have a great set of doctors, but my primary care physician is ChatGPT, and ChatGPT is the best doctor because I give it every bit of medical data from my whole life into it, all my medical tracking, my fitness, my blood pressure, my sleep habits. It has all of that stuff. And in a minute, when if I give it a symptom, like you said, it can take all that into account and then it can coach me on what the problem is. And to that end, it's better. It has more data, knows me better, probably gives me a better diagnosis than the doctor down the street for a primary care physician. So I think ChatGPT is my primary care physician. But let's use an easier example of the being a cook. Just because you have a recipe or somebody gave you cooking instructions, if you've never cooked something, you don't have the technique, you don't have the cooking utensils, you don't know how to, not all chicken's the same. Are you buying high grade chicken or high grade meat? Not all vegetables are the same. Like, do you know how to select vegetables? Do you know how to cook? Do you know technique? And then do you know how to present it on the plate? And that's one thing. Just because you got a list of ingredients or you got a recipe, that doesn't make you a cook. You have to do you have to do multiple things. You have to be great at 10 functions, and that doesn't teach you all 10 functions. And then once it gives you, if you could break it down to every function, you still don't have nuance yet. So to your point, I agree that, right now an AI tool cannot replace the real thing, but it can in some regards in slivers of, capabilities. Dave, what do you think?
It's a good point. I think there are instances where results are subjective versus objective, right? And I've held the role of chief branding officer or chief brand officer more than chief marketing officer, and there is a distinction. Marketing is more objective, branding is more subjective, right? It can come down to personal taste, right? Which there's no calculator for that. And I think that's where it hits me more a little bit, where there's some subjectivity around it to where AI is not necessarily your best friend. So those are my thoughts.
Yeah, and then one thing that we both agree and disagree in shades here is AI is only as good as the information is trained on, and so you could be, in my opinion, and David, you and I debate this all the time, but you can be the best marketer in the world, the best brand builder in the world, and if you knew how to teach that to a AI tool, it could 100% mimic you. But the skill set then isn't marketing. The skill set is training the AI tool. And what happens is a lot of times we use AI, and let's just use it. Most people use ChatGPT for writing. Well, if you haven't really trained it in your voice and trained it in your style and really taught it all about you, it's going to put out the same looking thing for everybody. And nobody wants to read that. And it's going to make mistakes and it's going to format. I mean, one of the things, you can always tell when something's generated by ChatGPT because it has the
Emojis.
same little memes and emojis and that weird, hyphen that it uses 400 times in a 250 word thing. And so when people just cut and paste from that, you're like, oh my, I don't even want to read this, right?
Yeah,
But I think you can educate it to be really close to you. Now that's a different skill set, but I think it can do it.
I've when you said that with the hyphens, one person I won't say their name stuck out immediately. Actually, multiple people, and I have AI write stuff for me all the time. But yeah, just thinking that it is a professional in every manner is dangerous, and it's you got to put your own spin to it. So goes back to my imposter statement.
Yeah,
Always
the thing too is if it doesn't have an opinion, so you go, please give me do a book review, give me the key points of this book. How does it know what's the key point? How does it know what struck me as most important?
right.
Right? I mean, it doesn't have a frame of reference. It doesn't have the humanity, so we have to put that humanity into that point. It's an imposter because AI cannot pretend to be human,
Yep.
and so that the human has to contribute that part to it. But I wouldn't at all diminish the contributions that AI tools can give to us. Nor are
Agreed.
you, I know.
Agreed.
Yeah,
So I pulled up our topics, and we're gonna have a couple. I think Ron really wants to have some random fire topics, which
I
makes
do.
me nervous because I don't know what they are. But your next one is 6 inches, Ron.
It's a super short topic.
Let's hear
No, no pun intended.
it.
You see, you just got that, dude. No, I came
I,
across a
I will
great
not
little.
elaborate.
I came on a great little LinkedIn post or article by Sherry Wynn, and I think Sherry is a prior Olympic athlete, successful Olympic athlete, Olympic coach, and now she's into coaching executives and professionals. And she had this LinkedIn, I think let's call it an article yesterday, and it was called the 6 inch principle. And what she said in the article essentially was, look, you know what? She goes, oh, specifically, I'll tell you, Olympic level leaders know motion, not intention, creates momentum. Shrink the game until taking action is psychologically impossible to refuse. 6 inches is just enough distance to break inertia, get small enough to feel utterly doable. And her whole point is, she goes on to say, you can achieve anything at 6 inches a day, 6 inches of improvement, 6 inches of success. Don't overwhelm your goal setting to be, I want to, let's say, I'm going to go run a 4 minute mile. For me, let's start out with like, I want to go walk a quarter of a mile today. Like make something doable, the 6 inch mark, and that will lead you to compounding success over time. Anyway, I thought that was a really interesting concept, Dave, and I thought it's good encouragement for everyone.
Yeah. I don't think I have any additional thoughts on that. You want to go to random fire?
And one second, I will tell you, I listened to a podcast today. I listened to a Simon Sinek podcast today, and it was, I don't remember the woman he had on, but it was fantastic. And the biggest concept from that podcast was the way to totally complete change your trajectory of your life is to live like you're only going to have 2 years to live. And so this was a cancer survivor that was going to die. And she's like, look, the people that thought they're going to die in 6 months, then all they're trying to do is accomplish bucket lists, and they're spending all their money and they're just going bananas. The people that think they have 5 years still procrastinate, saying, hey, I can get the things
Mm,
done that I want to get done in 5 years. But the people that have 2 years had to have enough of farsight to live a good life, but not to go bananas, but not to procrastinate. And then that was the perfect time to set your reference to set a new life. I really like that concept. It's the same concept of like 6 inches in my mind.
yeah. I think as we're building this company, Ron, we have to have a 1 year life expectation, and I think we'd move a lot faster.
Yeah, yeah, but you still also have to build for the future. Like you don't want to just build everything for 12 months. You got to also have an enduring concept.
Yeah.
But there's a way to now what we're doing, Dave. It has a shelf life of about 90 days before technology runs it over. So for us, we only build get to the next iteration, the next iteration, the next iteration. It's crazy how quickly things are changing now. Let's talk about passwords. How do we do that, Dave? Can we show a screen with passwords? Or are we just going to talk about them? What do we think?
I would have preloaded that. I don't think let me see, actually. I might be able to.
Yeah, this is interesting, guys. So,
You
visual capitalist, and
share the link with me, Ron, and then start talking, and I'll see if we can show the image.
what's the best way for me to share the link with you? I'll send you an email since I don't. Can I do it? I don't see notes on my screen.
However you want.
All right. Okay, everybody. This is me now, Julie, showing my email prowess to Dave. We'll
Yeah,
put.
keep in mind this is only our third live show, so
Yeah, we're gonna figure that out.
we'll figure it
Okay, here
out.
we go. It's on your way. All right, so Visual Capitalist, and why he's going to pull that up on Visual Capitalist. If you don't subscribe to Visual Capitalist, it's one of the funnest free publications. They do infographics, and I think their tagline is "Making Data Meaningful" or something. And probably as it relates to mortgage or real estate, probably once or twice a week, one of their images really strikes as something super useful, and it'd be good to use in your. You can just use it in your presentations, whether it's lunch and learns or home buyer seminars, or even on a prospecting call trying to explain something. But sometimes it's just pure fun. And I'll tell you, I post a lot on LinkedIn, and oftentimes my post reposting a visual capitalist visual gets the most pings out of. I could write what I think is just world changing strategy and crickets, and then I can write about how blue is the new green. But anyway, this is Dave showing you this password thing. These are the most common passwords in the world, and it's so funny because number one is 12345 6, and you can see all these common passwords. I actually had to ask Dave because I didn't know what is QWERTY, and he explained it to me. That's just the third row of the keyboard that
QWERTY.
you go from left to right. QWERTY, yeah. But the thing I was, and by the way, not only so they go out of their way and say, hey, all these passwords would take less than a second for a hacker to crack. But I asked Dave, how many of these passwords have you had? Not you don't obviously you don't use them today, and you wouldn't tell us if you did. But how many of these passwords have you deployed yourself?
0.
Zero. Back when passwords first came out, I used the word password because I was rebellious about having to use. I used like when they first started making you use passwords, I got pissed off. Like, why do you have to have a stupid password? I don't want to do a password, and so I'd pout and put the word password as my password as a form of rebellion, you know. And then you got to put a number or a sign or something. So it's password one, right? And I've also used the 123 123. And today, of course, Dave, as you know, I deploy very sophisticated, complicated passwords that can never be cracked. That is as long as you don't know the name of my last dog. But but anyway, I thought it was super funny. And like, dragon and monkey are like
Yeah.
19 and 20. Like,
Why?
I
I
don't.
wonder where dragon and monkey come from. What's the
I
relevance to
gotta think.
dragon and monkey?
I gotta think it's internationally. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, maybe dragon being uh ch from, uh, Chinese people. That's maybe I maybe I shouldn't say that, stereotypical. Um, sorry.
Yeah.
We're gonna get canceled, Ron, just because of that one statement.
uh, but yeah, anyway, so super humorous. If you're using one of these words, you may want to put a asterisk or a exclamation mark somewhere in there and fool the hackers.
Yeah, if you're watching this, I'd love to drop a comment of if you currently use or if you have ever used any of these passwords. That'd be fun to know. Let us know.
Yeah. Now, since then, I haven't used any of these type of passwords. That's been my rebellious phase when they first came out. Passwords didn't come out until I think like the early 2000s. Like they weren't really a thing. And now of course we have MFA, which is as complicated as can be, and which I've been able to dumb down, so that's good too.
Yeah,
Because I'm still rebelling. Let's go to the next topic. You ready?
ready.
Resi Club had a really interesting article earlier this week. The name of the article was essentially the counties with the highest and lowest share of homeowners born in state. And so think about it, Dave. If you were going to guess, what states have the highest level of in-state homeowners, and what states have the highest level of people migrating from out of the state into it? So let's go to the migration in. Which states do you think have the most people moving into it to buy homes?
California, New York, out of state, right? Not out of country,
No,
out of
not
state.
so moving to them. So
Right.
California has a net migration is dropping, not increasing,
That's true.
right?
If I bet you California would be different if you look at probably 10 years ago. So
100%.
moving in, Texas probably number one, and Texas and Florida probably number one.
Yeah. So it's so funny, interesting. Texas wasn't on the map, the top migration in. Now, this isn't population, it's what percentage of the home buyers are actually born in that state. That's the data, right? And so, for example, in
Oh,
Mojave
I thought you were
County in
asking me the
Arizona,
opposite, Ron.
well, I'm going to ask you the opposite one second. So in Mojave County in Arizona, only 19% of the home buyers actually were born in that state, right? So 81% of people buying in Mojave County, Arizona came from out of the state.
Wow.
If you look at it, it's all the Sun Belt states almost. The Sun Belt states have people buying from, so it's Arizona, Florida is number one by far, Virginia, Nevada, Maryland, and South Carolina's on there too, by the way. And all those states, the highest there is 25% of the people buying homes actually were born in the state.
Hmm.
And this statistic isn't the interesting one, in my opinion. It's the opposite side. What states are almost all homegrown home buyers? Like that tells you something totally different, right? And Dave, so if you're going to guess, what states have the most homegrown home buyers?
Mississippi, Arkansas, Oklahoma. I don't know.
Those are good guesses. They're all wrong, but they're good guesses.
Okay. Hold on. Wisconsin, Wyoming.
You get You're getting really close, but those are wrong too.
Okay.
It's all in the Rust Belt, the old legacy manufacturing states. So Pennsylvania, Michigan, Ohio, Illinois, but
Okay.
Pennsylvania by far. And by the way, when we say homegrown in say Cambria County, Pennsylvania, 87% of the home buyers are born in that state. Kind of crazy.
Cambria?
Yeah, St. Clair County, Michigan, 87%. Westmoreland, Pennsylvania, 86%. It goes on and on. They're all in the high 80% of people that are actually born in that state. They just don't move.
Yeah. Michigan was gonna be my next guess.
Yeah, Michigan had a lot of them. Michigan had Saginaw County, Muskegon County. They had Jackson County, Genesee County, all in the top 10. So, and they're all high 80s. So very
Every
interesting. Now,
person every
yeah.
person I've met from Michigan are just diehard about their state.
You know what's really interesting about that? So, if you were a mortgage or real estate professional, what useful information can you glean from that?
I don't know.
If you're in the Sun Belt states where a lot of people have to migrate in, they really need your services, right? Because they're unfamiliar with local areas. They're not familiar with how to buy a house or how much houses cost or what it entails to own a home, and so they really need professionals to help them because they're just not familiar. So that's one strategy, right? But if you're helping these people that are never leave their state, they're totally different. They have plenty of local knowledge. What they're about is long-term relationship. So in one of those states where people never move, you have to establish long-term trust, long-term relationship. Being local is really critical, which is completely different than if you're in one of the Sun Belt states. Really an interesting data though, huh?
Yep. So these rapid fire questions that you have, Ron, I'm pretty convinced that I'm gonna look dumb on every topic. You're gonna
Well,
you're
Dave, I have the advantage of having the article, so,
okay. All right, fair enough.
I
I
apologize about that.
I need to on my topics in the future. I need to have some stingers or some gotchas, so I
I'm
can so
not,
we can level the playing field.
I'm not trying to get you at all, but you can be
I'm kidding.
representative of our mass audience.
There you
I could holler across the house, "Hey, Belinda, what do you think?"
go. Belinda, if you're
uh,
still watching, comment.
Yeah, she'll scream back, "Look at the camera." No, I'm kidding. All right, you wanna do another quick one? This one's
Yep.
actually really interesting. This is from, Wealth of Common Sense, one of my favorite, once again, free newsletters. Ben, Carlson writes this newsletter, subscribe, it's great. And he, wrote an article the other day in 2 or 3 times a week, maybe 4 times a week, he writes a full article. The rest of the time, it's like data or simple thought. I love it. But he said, "Is Gen Z out of luck financially?" Right? Is Gen Z out of luck financially? And and what it had to do, a reader had written into him and he goes, did I miss out on buying a house? I'm a Gen Zer. I got totally screwed. I didn't get the 3% interest rate, and houses have appreciated now 50% in the last 4 years, and I'm just totally hosed essentially. And he had a really interesting answer because he answered it a few different ways. Right? He looked at three things. He looked at one, how did today's Gen Z generation, how do they compare in income compared to other generations? And I'll give you the answer in a second. I might ask you, but I don't want to put you on the spot. And then he looked at, and what is the impact of, we hear about all these credit reports? How is that really impacting home ownership? And then he, of course, said, what is the affordability equation? Which is really the true, barrier to home ownership. But here's the first thing. So, Dave, if you're going to say Gen Zers, the most recent generation, are they earning more or less than their parents? This would be like a
With
Price is Right.
inflation, what's that?
Yeah, inflation adjusted dollar. This is like a Price is Right. Like, so we'll make it easy.
I
Uh,
think with inflation adjusted, I think more.
so you win. So you win the bubble gum or the car because you got it totally right. The truth is, the typical Gen Z income is 50% higher in inflation adjusted dollars than their parents. In
Oh,
fact, they're the highest earning generation in history.
wow.
Now, and that's just a great example of us being misled by the news,
Yeah.
right? Like totally misled by the news. Because do
What
you hear that?
Hear what? Yeah, absolutely. What both my kids are no, one of my kids is Gen Z. The other, my eldest, is right on the cusp. What age is Gen Z right now?
1997 to 2012.
Oh,
That's
19 oh
they were born
1997.
to 2012 is Gen Z.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, so oh, I guess both my kids are Gen Z. I thought one was like right on the verge. Okay. So I don't know. Yeah, the news outlets. are we all see them. It's the worst absolute climate for someone in their 20s to buy a house, but they're making 50% more. Did you say 50% more than their parents?
Yes, yes, and the highest earning generation in history on inflation adjusted dollars.
So why is that? Why I don't is there a I don't think there's a political motivation. Obviously we know there can be political motivations around what you hear on the news, but I don't see why this one would be politically motivated. Is it just misinformation?
No, I don't think happy news sells, gloom and doom sells, right? If you tell
Right.
people they're miserable, they like to associate with that,
Right.
they're like, "Oh, yeah, it is really hard. Thank you for acknowledging my plight."
Yeah.
Right? And that's what we have here because they're making a ton of money, right? And you don't hear that. Now, that doesn't mean there's not an affordability issue, which we'll attack in a minute. But the first thing is understand they're making a lot more money. Here's the next thing. We have this thought that kids are just, yep, Dave.
I would also, with that, look at what the spending habits are compared to their parents. Do you think that
I
how much of
agree.
that plays into it?
My favorite cartoon I've seen in the last few years, is it that the burritos are expensive or is it that you're getting it delivered in a limousine?
Right.
Like, which is the inflation part?
Yeah.
That
Right.
$10 burrito, that $20 ride, you
Right.
know? Okay, here's another one. Interesting. We all have been told about this overwhelming student loan debt that is crushing, the last couple generations, right? And if you had to quantify that, I mean, what's your perception of how much debt people have?
Of Gen Zers
Uh,
or
I mean, yeah, let's go Gen Z. How much credit card debt do you think they have?
how much credit card debt does the average
I mean,
Gen
no, not credit
Zer
card,
have?
student loan, no, just student loan debt. How much student loan debt do they have?
Does the average Gen Z have? I would say 90,000, maybe 70.
Okay, so the Federal Reserve Bank of New York shows that 58% of, student loan home buyers have less than $25,000 in student loan debt.
Wow.
Yep, and 80% of, Gen Zers have less than $50,000. 80%.
Wow. Okay.
Only, 8% have more than 100,000,
Interesting. Okay.
right?
What about
Really
credit
interesting,
card
and
debt? Do you have credit card
there's a
debt
great
there?
little there's a great little chart here in this article that you guys can, get to if you go to once again, I think I posted on this, so you can go to my LinkedIn and get the article if you want. But, here's the thing here's the thing too, see, because people think it's super expensive because colleges are charging 100,000 or $150,000 a year, but you know what? Nobody other than Belinda and I, pay that. Everybody else pays a discounted rate, and they get grants and all this other stuff, right? And so they're not paying anywhere near rack rate. I read something like 40% of kids at private schools don't pay. Like 40%. Like,
Yeah.
okay. But this is a misnomer and don't get stuck up in the headline news. It's just not true, right? Pay attention. Kids are making more than they've ever made. They don't really have as much debt. And Dave, I can get you the credit card debt. I don't have it right now. So there is an affordability issue, right? I mean, houses are up by 50% and interest rates are up in the 7%. And there's definitely an affordability issue, even with the increased income. But you know what Ben Carlson says in this article, I agree. Just like previous generations, it was unaffordable to previous generations. They're going to figure it out. They'll
Right.
figure it out. They'll figure out how to budget right. They'll figure out how to house hack. They're going to, over time, figure it out. But here's what's really interesting. Let me see this article. So one of the most interesting charts in this, which I don't think I'll show you because I can't bring it up, it's the home ownership by age and generation, right? And so this chart shows each generation, what percentage of that generation owned a home at age 25 or age 30 or age 35, right? That's what the chart shows. And while the Gen Zs are slightly off previous generations, not every generation, by the way, just off some generations, it's really negligible. It's almost the same. So they
Hmm.
almost have the chart right here shows they almost have the same ownership rate as previous
Hold it back.
generations.
Hold it back.
Hold it back. Hold it back.
Yeah.
Okay, it's stuck. We
Exposures
got
to you can't see it. That's all right.
yeah. You can't see it, but just know this chart shows that they will have almost the same ownership rate, right? That's not something when we hear about. I mean, we all we hear is how horrible they got it and they can't figure it out. They're figuring it out. They're getting help with their family. Their family is richer than ever. Today, Americans have more wealth than in history. Whether it's the $37 trillion in home equity, I think they have another almost $40 trillion in assets and investable assets, liquidatable assets. They have tons of money. They got to figure out how to transfer that money to their kids. There's all sorts of ways for kids to buy. We can't buy into the doom loop. That's not how we don't. By the way, that's not how we get paid. We get paid by helping people achieve the dream of home ownership. It's going past the false narrative, going past the false headlines, and showing people why now is a great time to buy and how it can help them.
Yeah.
We got
What
thoughts on that?
other what's that?
Got any thoughts on that?
No, no, nothing more to add actual value than what you just added.
Okay, we're coming up to the 60-minute mark if I understand my clock right.
We are. Is that all your quick rapid fire topics?
No, I got more, but let's just keep it at that.
All right. So quick rapid fire. So I'll show this one more time. With swag right now being 15% off, use code Nessie.
All right. I'm gonna write down little Ness. I'm gonna write down Nessie because I'm gonna see if I can't return my last order and reorder.
Some people do spell Nessie with an IE, but I chose the Y. Don't know why. But littlenessie.com/store. And for the next week, if you want to subscribe to our monthly social media content, we create content for loan officers that's personalized to you, customized to you. You can send in your own video, raw, unedited. We'll take care of everything for you. We don't simply just run it through an AI platform like a CapCut or a Captions. We do that, but we add more as well. There's probably about 4 or 5 different layers and steps that we put our video through to give you final videos that doesn't look like everyone else's. So 50% off for the first month. Use code Nessie at littlenessie.com, and we'd love to have you. So with that, Ron, I think that's a wrap.
That's beautiful,
Fine.
Dave. Thank you, guys. Give us your feedback.
Yeah. Yeah. Give us your feedback on other questions or topics that you would like Ron to talk about. I'm going to keep coming at you with stuff like Superman and stuff like that. So, all right.
That's
We'll
good.
see you next week on Thursday. Take care.